to Unclouded Eye, your source for the astrological forecast and some cosmic chit chat.
And I'm the chit chat.
And I'm Ashley Brooks.
And I'm Ty Gowan. Oh my God. I always come out of that really calm intro that you guys put together with like the too high of an energy level because I'm excited to do this.
Yeah.
But that's very calming and like my personality abuts that intro a little bit.
The music,
because I want to scream out of it and just be like, welcome to the Chit Chat podcast.
Yeah, it's high energy. I feel like it's very much, I picture almost a medieval kind of sort of like what they would play on the little horns when like the king comes out. Like, I don't know why, but I mean, I recorded that song. Like that's me playing organ. So I'm allowed to say that about my music. And I mean it in a good way.
I wouldn't take that in a bad way.
It's very triumphant.
It's triumphant. We are the triumphant peasants. This is the Unclouded Eye podcast.
Yes, you're here. So this week of July 2nd, our theme for the week. What is our theme for the week, Ty?
It's broad again. We're gonna do paranormal research.
Okay, that is broad.
Yeah, but I know like it's something that we have experience in. So I'm gonna try to like steer in the direction of something that we can talk about a little bit based on our experience.
Okay, cool. I'm excited for that.
First, I have another gift for you though.
Why?
I know it's like summer is here. Like,
yeah,
you know,
right. And you are the king of summer.
Yeah. Well, thank you for making me the king of summer. I've got garlic scapes for you.
These are beautiful.
Oh God, they taste so good too.
Wow, these are gorgeous. These are already ready?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow, I love this. I can't wait. What do you like to make with these? So
what I generally do is I'll chop them up and put them in a little olive oil and saute them, then like add them to any dish that would take garlic. Because it's like a softer, more greener garlic taste, I would say.
Okay.
So like kind of like a garlic and a green onion had a baby is what a garlic scape is.
Amazing. I love both of those things. I'm a huge garlic fan.
So enjoy these.
Yeah.
If you need more scapes, I got more.
Okay.
But they store really well too if you wanted to like chop them up or like even like make a pesto in like a food processor, add some olive oil and then like throw it in the freezer. It'll last for a long time for you.
That sounds really good. Okay.
Enjoy it.
Thank you so much. So how is your garden doing overall?
It was like the hand of God himself came down and threw seeds on my garden bed. And that's not in a good way. It was like nature seeded my garden with weeds unlike I've ever seen before. I spent cumulatively this week 7 hours picking out whatever had happened to my garden. I've never seen it like that
in
before.
1 week?
In 1 week.
That's
and
insane.
I had to do it in little 1.5 hour bursts with an audiobook after work just because it was too much work, but it was like, there was a point halfway where I was just like, I give up. The plants will just have to survive through basically the grass that has spread across my garden.
That's
somehow.
wild.
Never happened before like that.
That's interesting. I feel like we've gotten a lot of sun and heat, so it just kind of put everything to life.
Yeah, it was like any seed that decided to find itself in my garden this week sprouted and took hold. So
okay,
we're back to normal and you got garlic scapes now.
All right, good. My garden is good. It's a little slow going, but the black tomato is still alive.
Okay,
I'm happy to report it is making its way. I have it kind of in a little cage. It's not as tall as maybe it should be. Like you gave my mom a black tomato plant as well, and hers is thriving. But my mom is a Taurus. She's a green thumb.
Oh my God.
You know,
and also these retired people have all day to take care of their tomatoes because I gave one to my dad too, and it's like a bush.
Yeah, he already has a black tomato.
Exactly. I don't know. The boomer generation are doing better with these black tomatoes overall, I think.
I'm going to have to look at the like generational aspects for the baby boomers and see if there's something in there that is green thumb related.
That'd be cool. I would have never thought about that.
Because both of my parents are really good at gardening.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe that's something we all age into, or maybe it's something specific to their generation.
I hope we age into it. So I want to get even better.
Yeah.
I only want dirt.
I know.
How I want my future to be.
Dirt. Podcasts.
Dirt and podcasts. There's the next show.
I'd be happy if my life was dirt and podcast.
If my life was dirt, podcast, and writing, like on just repeat, I would be happy with that.
Yeah, let's manifest that for ourselves.
Perfect.
Let's check back in like 20 episodes and see where we're at.
Yeah, that can happen for us. For all the wonderful people out there, subscribe to Ashley's Unclouded Eye Patreon channel. So for just $5 a month, you could make this dream of dirt podcast and writing happen for me.
Yes, you absolutely could. And it's full of all kinds of great stuff. So we're going to get into the weekly forecast. But if you go over to the Patreon, we go even deeper. I talk about every single transit that's happening every day of the year.
Right.
So
because like we've gotten feedback that your forecasts at the beginning of these episodes are really deep and informative. So if you think that's good, like what I've seen you do on your Patreon is like, one, you're teaching people why it's important, you know, like what's happening and just the depth of every aspect that's going on. You're not just giving me the spark notes of the week, you know?
yeah, that is for the people that really want to dive in. So yeah, go check it out. Let's talk about the week of July 2nd through the 8th. And there's a lot happening.
Okay,
I know I've said that before, but I mean it even more this time.
let's go for it.
Okay. Tuesday, July 2nd, there's so much happening. There are literally 5 transits happening that day. So we're going to try our best to kind of condense it just so this doesn't end up being like a 20-minute discussion of one day. So first things first, Neptune retrograde starts on Tuesday, July 2nd, and it's going to be going until December 7th. So that's pretty normal. Neptune spends about 5 months of every year in retrograde.
And so what does that do for Neptune specifically?
So Neptune is what we would call a generational planet. So everything beyond Saturn is a generational planet. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are all generational planets. So all 3 of those planets spend a good amount of the year in retrograde just based on their orbits and our position here that we're able to observe them from. And for anyone who doesn't know what retrograde is,
Yeah.
retrograde is not, so you'll hear about planets moving backwards. Planets don't actually move backwards, but based on the way that all of our orbits kind of overlap with each other, it can appear from our vantage point that a planet is moving backwards in the sky because of the way that the orbits are sort of piling on top of each other.
Okay.
And so what that does is it does create this sort of illusory time. And it's different based on each planet. So let's get into Neptune specifically. So Neptune is the planet of spirituality, of compassion, kindness, intuition. It's very ethereal, foggy, kind of a whimsical planet. People that have a lot of Neptune in their chart tend to be very creative, very abstract. They might be kind of like head in the clouds, a little flighty. So when Neptune is direct, we're able to access all of that, but it's maybe a little more tucked in the pocket. When Neptune is retrograde, it's kind of like there's a fog that comes down and you really have to rely on your intuition because your senses might not give you the data that you need exactly.
That's interesting because I would have thought that by being a spiritual planet moving in retrograde, it would be harder to connect with your third eye. And you're almost telling me that you need to more so rely on that third eye, your intuition, because logic and your senses might play tricks on you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like what happens is we kind of get more of the possibly negative qualities of Neptune, which is more about confusion, fog, and feeling as though we are trying to escape from reality.
It's interesting because in runic mythology, that would be the realm called Muspelheim,
Okay.
which is the realm of fog, indecision. And Vikings used to think that if you traveled too far trying to find yourself there, you would never be able to find your way back.
That's exactly it. So the thing about Neptune retrograde, it's really all about having trust and faith, because if you freak out in that moment where you're like, I don't really know what I should do, like things are kind of deceiving me, you can easily kind of get off path and you can stumble and then you don't know where you are. But if you're just like, okay, this is a road I walk every day, all I have to do is just keep taking a step in front of me and trust that I have like almost the muscle memory to get to where I'm going, you know, because the more you freak out, the more you end up somewhere totally different.
Chinese finger trap.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Yeah.
So with that, knowing the fogginess of Neptune's retrograde, how does that affect the other 4 transits that you mentioned? that are happening all on the same day.
Well, because this retrograde is spread out, it's, for instance, Mercury tends to be the one we hear about the most because it only lasts for a few weeks.
Okay.
And also, Mercury is closer to Earth, so we tend to feel it more regularly. It tends to impact us more personally. Whereas Neptune is a generational planet, which means it, everyone born within the same 8 or 9 years of you has the same Neptune placement, pretty much within the same sign anyway. So it's more about impacting generations, impacting larger scale events. So we might find that while this is kind of true in our daily lives, it's going to be even more true on like a global scale. So it's more about like having faith, more about being intuitive and trusting that, and maybe not making any like rash decisions collectively. Obviously, like we can all only do our part, for that. But
But with a lot of the other stuff that's happening on Tuesday, like tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Because it seems like an astrologically charged day. You might not feel the impacts of Neptune going retrograde right away because it's spanned out over those months.
You got it. Yeah.
What are some more acute moments we're going to feel on Tuesday?
Okay, so Mercury is moving into Leo, and it's going to be there until July 25th, so about 3 weeks, a little over. And this is interesting because Mercury is actually going to go retrograde in August. So even though it will enter Virgo, it's going to move back into Leo. So it's going to be in Leo.
Oh, that's confusing.
For a while.
Your job is very confusing.
There's a lot going on.
Okay.
A lot to keep straight. So let's just focus, though, right now on this week. So Mercury is moving into Leo, and it will be there until July 25th, at least this run. So let's just focus on that. So with Mercury moving into Leo, it's going to be the first of a bunch of planets that will be moving into Leo over the course of the next month.
Including the sun.
The sun, Venus, all of those will move into Leo at some point in July. So with Mercury in Leo, this is a very creative, expressive placement for Mercury. Mercury loves to be more showy, more dramatic. We might find that we enjoy expressing ourselves more openly and having a little bit more fun with the way we communicate, just being more playful with that communication. You might also find that people really need stuff to be brought back to them. Like when Mercury's in Leo, people really enjoy having personal examples for things. So if you're trying to tell someone about something, giving them a personal example that they can apply back to their own life.
Okay.
And people might also use those a lot in speech. Like for instance, if you're telling somebody at work that they need to do a certain thing, be like, this, reminds me of when you did this and, you were in that play, and they're like, oh yeah. And then that helps them to understand, like to have that personal example to hold on to.
Just like you're doing to me one day ahead of when this transit would happen.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you for preparing me.
I'm doing the best I can.
It's great.
So much happening.
This is happening tomorrow, people. Use your examples.
So I'm just going to briefly run down the other 3 transits that are happening that day. If you want more, head over to Patreon, but we got to kind of continue on with the week. Okay, so Mercury is trining over to retrograde Neptune that day.
And we don't love a trine.
No, we love a trine.
We love trines here.
Trines are amazing,
Okay,
Ty. They're
sorry.
the best aspect.
Oh my God, I thought the ones where they're in alignment meant they were the best.
Opposite. Wait.
Like when they're all stacked on top of each
Conjunction.
other. Conjunction's my favorite, guys.
Okay, conjunction's Ty's favorite.
Yep.
So a trine is considered the most harmonious aspect. With Mercury and Neptune, this is really great for imagination.
Trine.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a triangle is very solid. It's got that solid base, you
Yep.
know? So Mercury trining Neptune, great imagination, flowing conversation, intuition and conversation. It just feels good. It's helpful with this Neptune retrograde. It's giving it some support. So that day might not feel so foggy, so bad. The sun is squaring the nodes of the moon that day, so we could feel a little stuck. We could feel a little frozen in place.
That's the weirdest phrase you've ever said to me.
I know, and I don't really have too much time to get into it.
Okay,
So
we're going to talk after the podcast.
We're going to have to circle back around at some point to that.
Keep going.
So basically, they're just points on the moon's orbit that the sun is interacting with.
Okay. I'm going to ask you more later.
We're going to talk more about that. I'm sure in the next few weeks, we will discuss the nodes in greater depth.
Okay, thank you.
And Venus is trining Saturn, really good for teamwork and collaboration on Tuesday.
Perfect.
Okay. On Wednesday, July 3rd, so just one day after all that, Mercury in Leo now is opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So this can create some stubbornness in communication. It might feel like you're trying to almost get information out of other people and you almost have to like dig for it. Like people aren't forthcoming with what they're trying to say.
Okay.
It's like you're asking somebody a question like, can you go do this for me? And they're like, yes. Will you go do that for me? Yes. And then they're just still sitting there. When will you do that for me? Oh, I need to finish this first. Like you have to you have to dig through the information to get to what you need to have happen.
My fucking nightmare, honestly. So we got to remember that.
Remember that for Wednesday. It's really only going to be on the 3rd that we're going to be feeling that. So it's not like a lingering transit,
Perfect.
Thankfully. And that's happening at 3:26 a.m. Eastern time on that day, but we're going to be feeling it throughout the day.
Okay, cool.
Friday, July 5th, we have a new moon in Cancer happening, and that is at 6:57 p.m. Eastern time. And new moons are great because it means that the sun and moon are in the exact same sign in the exact same place in the sky. So that's why you don't see the moon because the sun is blocking it, with its light.
They're in conjunction.
They're in conjunction. You got it. So anytime we have a new moon, it means that the sun and moon are conjunct. And anytime we have a full moon, it means that they're opposite.
Opposition.
You got it.
My God, is a quarter moon a trine?
A quarter moon is a square.
Oh, wait. Next episode.
A gibbous is a trine.
Oh, my. I was so close.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
We're learning. We're learning as a team.
Guys, this is big for me.
Yeah. We'll do more like educational astrology as we go too. I think that will be fun because
maybe when we don't have like big weeks like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on. So the new moon in Cancer is really great for family. It's great for feeling love and being with people that you care about, close friends and family. It's very intimate and personal, but it's also not like, oh, let's have a family reunion because the new moon is very quiet. It's introverted. It's introspective. It's more like, let's have a quiet day with the people we love or have a quiet day just kind of connecting in with that sort of home energy, being at home. And
it's nice that it's a Friday too.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you could just have like a quiet night with a couple of your favorite people, with your family, like a nice like family dinner, something that's a little bit less stressful or less like large scale than like, a full moon in Cancer might be better for a big family party.
Yeah. So calm down this weekend, quiet night in on Friday.
Yeah. And on Friday also Mars is sextile Saturn. So that's really great for getting stuff done, checking things off your to-do list. That energy carries through the end of the week and into the weekend. So helpful for getting stuff done around the house, getting stuff done at work. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Because there's almost a joy to be found in taking action and getting work done.
I love it. I always find that joy. So I don't know why I'm like such a list person.
Yes, me too.
I love checking stuff off. It gives me a little dopamine rush.
Satisfying. Yeah. I know. I love lists. My phone, I don't know if you use notes apps on your phone or like anything like that. It's just full of to-do lists and like different types of lists. Like, I
love it. There's a program, we're not sponsored by them, but it's called Asana that I've used at work before. It's basically like list and scheduling based, but they know exactly how to win me over because every once in a while we're checking stuff off. It's not every time. It's not every 2 times. It's random. But when you check off enough, a little like unicorn with a rainbow will run by your screen and it'll be like, good job. And
that's so satisfying.
I don't know. Someone coding that knows that I need that, like for whatever reason.
Yeah, because if it was every time, it wouldn't be quite as enjoyable.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, you'd just be like, oh, there it is again.
Yep.
Okay, then on Saturday, July 6th, Venus is squaring Chiron. You remember our friend Chiron?
I love Chiron. We talked about the centaur, the healer, but not this sadness around Chiron too, because he wants to heal.
He's wounded. He's like permanently wounded, but that's what gives him the compassion for others because he knows what it is to hurt.
My God.
Isn't that awful?
He's just MVP Chiron here on the podcast.
Yeah, we're huge Chiron fans.
Chiron,
here.
if you ever want to come down and guest, like just let your energy be known. We'll always accept Chiron.
Clear some room for a centaur over in this area.
Can you imagine? I'm manifesting that now. Chiron's energy will be in the next podcast episode.
Oh my gosh. You should be a centaur for Halloween sometime.
Who would be the bag?
Oh, you're right. No, that's
Someone
awful.
has the worst job ever,
You're
and
right.
I don't have abs.
Yeah,
Like,
they're always
they're
shirtless.
always shirtless.
You can't have a button-down shirt centaur.
Oh my god, I would like imagine like the polo centaur. He wants to tell you about your boat and then life insurance and yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just pictured him, like, swimming out to his boat with his horse legs.
Do you think, or is it like four legs swimming and then two hands swimming forward?
I
Like
picture the horse doing all the swimming and him, like, holding other stuff or, like, yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so Venus is squaring Chiron on Saturday the 6th at 2:32 a.m. Eastern Time, but we're going to feel it all day. This is a little tense aspect with relationships.
Oh,
So, because Venus is ruling over relationships, money, finances, beauty, it is squaring to Chiron, which is all about healing. So, there's something that needs healing, something that needs addressing in relationships that's coming up on Saturday. So, we could be feeling more insecure in relationships. We could be feeling more like misunderstood, or like there's some aspect of our romantic partnerships or our friendships that feels like there's something just a little off. And there's just a need to be more vulnerable with people and kind of share what you're feeling. Because if you're bottling it up, it could feel really bad.
gotcha. Okay, that's really good advice.
So that's what I've got for you for this week. That's a lot, I know.
Big week.
Especially Tuesday, July 2nd. Like that's kicking off July with a bang.
So hoping that our viewers and listeners are listening on Monday so they can prep accordingly for tomorrow.
Yeah. And if you are listening to this after that, just, reflect back. Like, was that a lot for you? Or maybe you love it. Like some people love when the sky is active. I feel like they thrive on it. And others are like, I just want to crawl into bed and take a nap.
Yeah. I mean, as I listen to you week to week, I'll have to start monitoring like what kind of reaction that I personally have to these events, because I've been so unaware of it for most of my life.
Yeah.
This is a really cool experience to be able to talk to you.
It's funny because a lot of people think that I must plan out my day by the forecast. And like to some extent I will a little bit, but my main interest lies in looking back and being like, oh, right, like that probably had something to do with that transit, and having the data to be like, I love collecting the data and looking for patterns. That's like my favorite thing. So yeah, the more you can share with me, the better.
Ready to jump over to the topic for today?
Absolutely.
Cool. I'll try to keep this short so we can get people in and out of here with their 30-minute celestial forecast as close as we can get it to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I talk too fast, please drop it in the comments. Let me know that you want me to slow my diction down to a better pace for people to listen to, because I tend to talk pretty fast, I think.
I think it's nice. It's sometimes when people talk too slow on podcasts, I have to speed it up to 1.25.
You do that?
Sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
Depends.
I feel like I can't do that. It would drive me crazy. But today's topic is paranormal research, which we have done a lot of.
We certainly have.
So we're saying that because if you guys aren't familiar, we're both part of the Haunt Me web series, which you can find pretty much on any handle. It's Haunt Me Official, or haunt-me.com is also our website. There are 9 seasons that are out on Haunt Me. We did this for 10 years before doing this podcast. So check us out there. Understand why we're going to be skipping over some of maybe like the most base parts of paranormal research, just because we kind of have a start there. So what I want to talk today more about is, where did paranormal research get its start? I think that's more interesting than, what are people doing right now? You can just look,
Yeah, I would love to hear the history of that.
So we talked about it a little bit in our test episode before we did this, but a lot of where paranormal research kind of gets its, I would say people would say that it starts is with the spiritualism movement, which began in the mid to late 1800s. And it's largely credited as the creating the modern interest for the paranormal, really. It was a point in time where it was, around the Industrial Revolution, post-Civil War era. There's a lot of death. So people were quickly trying to better understand their psychical beliefs, and their interest in psychic phenomena started to grow in popularity very quickly. So additionally, because of the speed of which the interest grew, so unfortunately did fraudulism. And it's sad that like the spiritualism movement has kind of been tainted with that overall. and there's not that many spiritual purists anymore.
Yeah.
It's interesting. People like actually Houdini of the time were some of those people who wanted to discredit other figures like the Fox sisters.
Right. Okay.
So totally look into that if you guys are interested in that. We're gonna move along because there's a lot to talk about here too. It caused, I would say, more grounded moments because spiritualism was a lot of feeling and people wanted to study that, like you looking back after a forecast and understanding in arrears how that affected you.
Right.
So the American Society for Psychical Research, which is the ASPR, I don't know if you've heard that acronym
No,
ever
I haven't.
before. Well, they opened in 1885 and it still operates to this day. Their mission was to research how the mind is related to matter, energy, space, and time. And they're actually credited with a lot of the techniques that we brought to the table during Haunt Me, like the Gansfield experiment in relation to ESP phenomena, and also how like the Estes method relates to spirit communication. Just trying to create repetitive ways that you can test the paranormal, which is so hard to frame, right?
Yeah, because I feel like every experiment, there's like different parameters and,
Limiting variables in the paranormal is incredibly difficult.
yeah, it's very Neptunian, to borrow something from earlier in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
forecast.
You are in the fog and unfortunately have to go a lot on faith, which is hard when you're trying to preach this as a science.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And it's why it hasn't been widely accepted at this point.
Exactly. I thought this was pretty cool. In 1930, Duke University established a parapsychology lab to study the paranormal and psychic experiences. And then in 1936, psychic researcher Harry Price published Confessions of a Ghost Hunter, which documented his experiments using cameras, voice recorders, and barographs to measure conditions during paranormal investigations, and particularly seances of that time, which is similar to our season 1 Haunt Me experience. You know, like
Yes.
just going tech heavy.
Right.
Only tech. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Have you heard of Hans Holzer before?
No.
So he was kind of considered the father of modern paranormal investigation. And in 1963, he published a book called Ghost Hunter, which is literally where the term gets started.
Oh, wow. Okay. I always wondered about that.
Yeah. So it comes from Hans Holzer. He created it or wrote this book in such a way that it could be openly accepted by people who just had an interest, so it was really approachable to the general audience for the first time ever. So it made people have a larger ability to casually research paranormal phenomena and the ability to explore hauntings.
Okay.
So that starts to grow until around the 1980s when we are gripped in satanic panic.
Oh, man.
And again, that should be something we cover in another episode.
We're going to have to. Oh,
Because
gosh, that was such a real thing.
Such a bummer because ghost hunting and research slows to a trickle. It is pushed out to the ways of something that could be satanic. And it's really not again until the late 2000s, I would say, the late zeros, when sci-fi takes a huge chance and greenlights a show called Ghost Hunters.
Right. That really was the reboot of that type of thing. I feel like we're still kind of recovering from satanic panic, but Ghost Hunters and shows like it are really what helped to make it a little more mainstream again.
Exactly, because we lost a generation because by stopping any interest or research with the occult, I'll say, in the 80s, the next generation of people who were born like us really didn't have, I would say, guardrails on their exploration growing up. So weird stuff's happening to us. We don't know who to talk to.
Exactly. Like I just remember watching like The Craft or Buffy, and like that was my lens. And thankfully I had a mom who was pretty open to talking to me about psychic stuff, but
not all of us had that.
Yeah.
And my parents were supportive too, but like also they didn't have the education for talking about ghosts. So it was when I was in high school watching Rupert Giles on Buffy and Wesley Wyndham Price, when I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a watcher in real life. And so I started researching the paranormal.
Exactly. That's so cool. Still love Buffy.
Someone else who researches the paranormal is our star sign today. You ready for this?
I'm so ready.
Okay. So The date is 7/1/1952. The location is Ottawa, Ontario. And I'm sorry, Canada does not have a birth time for you.
Okay. That is all right. We just won't be able to look at like the houses stuff falls in, but we can look at everything else. So the first thing that I noticed with this person is that they have what we would call a stellium in their.
This is a new term.
Yeah, so a stellium involves 3 or more planets that are conjunct in a single sign.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Superpower.
Exactly. So they have their Sun, their Venus, and Uranus conjunct in Cancer. And having that grouping of planets makes me think that this is a person that sees the world differently than others.
Yeah.
Uranus involved gives like a certain eccentricity to this individual. So others can view them as somebody who's a little like off the beaten path. Maybe they're rebellious in some way. And Venus is there, so they might be drawn to like unusual relationships as well, or unusual creative endeavors. We could look at it that way too.
I think you're nailing it.
Okay.
Per usual. We're on, is this episode 5 at
Yes.
this point? Yes. Congratulations.
Thank
Keep
you.
nailing
I'm
it.
wondering if I'm ever going to be like horribly wrong.
I'll let you know. I'm going to be honest
Just
with
don't
you.
give
If you
me
are.
any like awful people, like where, like, I'm like, oh, they seem like such a kind person. You're like, actually, it's like Hitler.
Yeah, I'm not. We're not going to give that any space on
Thank
this
you.
podcast.
Okay. So there's another clump of planets. They have Saturn, Neptune, and the moon. They're not technically in a stellium just because the moon is just the way that they're spread out. They're a little too spread out to be considered a stellium proper.
But you're almost saying that there's almost 2 stelliums in this chart.
Yeah, there's like clusters. So they have those 3 planets in Cancer. They have Mercury, Pluto, and something called Black Moon Lilith all in Leo.
Excuse me.
We'll get back to her in a second. And then we have Saturn, Neptune, and the moon all in Libra. So they've got these like little clumps around their chart that are interesting. So looking at that moon Neptune conjunction, this is somebody who's very imaginative and who's also collaborative. I get this sense that they're working with other people. There's like a partnership involved with this, or being known for a partnership.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad that that's right, because that was kind of taking a gamble with that
No,
one.
you got it. Black Moon Lilith. Let's go.
Let's go about Black Moon Lilith. So Black Moon Lilith is not an actual body in the sky. I mean,
Good.
It's a point. So Black Moon Lilith is represented by like dark feminine energy. So everyone has Black Moon Lilith in their chart, regardless of gender. It's just a point that shows you sort of like where you differ from society. Like, so people who have Black Moon Lilith in strong, like if it's strong in their chart, they're going to deviate from society in some way that's like more, about tapping into raw primal energy. So they have this conjunct their Mercury, like a loose conjunction. So that could give them very unusual ideas that are very off the beaten path of what normal people are doing.
And does that change their communication style too?
Yeah, it's
because
intense.
of Mercury.
There's an intensity there, and it's in Leo. So it's not like Leo is very showy. It's very dramatic. So there's almost like in there the way that they're creating things. If this is a creative type person, they might be doing it through that avenue rather than like preaching it in the street.
Like being on SNL or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like they would be making, jokes about it, or they would be, if they were a writer, they'd be writing books where those ideas are getting funneled into, or if they were, a singer, like it would be in their songs.
It would be in their movies if they made movies.
Right,
Like that.
exactly. So the other thing that I'm noticing is that their Pluto is highly aspected. So their Pluto is in Leo. It's part of that clump that I was just talking about with Black Moon Lilith, and it is loosely conjunct Black Moon Lilith. It's almost, I would almost be like, it's out of conjunction just because it's 9 degrees away. It's almost too far, but I'm going to count it for this. And Pluto is highly aspected. It's squaring over to their Jupiter. It's sextiling down to their moon and Neptune. This makes me think that this person is, I think a couple episodes ago, we kind of talked about somebody who is maybe experiencing like a fascination or preoccupation with death. I'm seeing it here too, but in a different way.
It is a different way.
It seems like it's almost more enjoyable. There's more joy to be found in it, which is like a weird thing to say.
That's a weird thing to get goosebumps on. You're just so accurate again.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's less like, oh, I'm preoccupied with anxiety about death, but I'm more preoccupied with like how interesting it is.
You ready?
Yes.
This is Dan Aykroyd. Right? Like you just
Who
nailed
you
it
gonna
again.
call?
So for those of you who might not know, Dan Aykroyd's role in the movie Ghostbusters.
Oh my god, like the partnership energy, like that's like what he's known for. Okay. All
Exactly.
right, all right.
It was a huge influence on me. It's why part of why I think I wanted to become a or paranormal researcher, because I wanted to be a ghostbuster, right?
Yeah, of course. Who didn't?
And I also thought, like, growing up, that he was the funniest person alive. Like, he was the cream of the crop for me of just like comedy in the way that he communicated, maybe has to do with that aspect of Mercury that you were just talking about, where it was very unique and it
Yeah,
struck
the
a
Black
niche
Moon
with me.
Lilith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So he also had an interest in the paranormal for his entire life and brought a lot of what he learned into the Ghostbusters movie. That was like an outlet for him to be like, I've learned all of these things specifically through his father too,
Oh,
which I'll get into in a
interesting.
minute. But he funneled it into his craft. And so I thought that was really cool because I mean, they think Ghostbusters have, what are they called? The PKE meters or whatever.
Yeah.
We had K2 meters.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Theirs look better, and I would give anything for like a mod of a K2 meter with the two things that would come up at the top. How
Oh,
cool would
wow.
that
If
be?
anyone listening can build that, let us know.
I would love it. Yeah, I'll give you free rune readings. I'll give you anything that you want to make that happen for me.
Yes.
Getting back into his history a little bit, Dan Aykroyd grew up with a father who worked in as a policy advisor for the Canadian Prime Minister, which I had no idea that they were so connected to the government. And his mother was a secretary. He had a pretty normal childhood upbringing. He studied criminology and sociology in college before dropping out, which I didn't realize that was part of his life. It just wasn't working for him. He wasn't interested in that way of learning or that communication style.
Yeah, Mercury conjunct Black Moon Lilith because Mercury is also in how you learn. So he wouldn't learn the traditional way.
No, I think based on reading his stuff, he had to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had to find a different outlook to communicate his experiences. So that's why after dropping out of school, he started work as a comedian, working in different nightclubs and even a speakeasy called Club 505. At Club 505, he was also developing his music career. So he's finding outlets everywhere. He's interested in everything.
Yes.
So I think it was around the same time he was 17 when he started a Canadian sketch comedy group with Lorne Michaels. And that's how he later propelled his career to appear on SNL when it eventually got created. So in his personal life, he's had a little taste of everything. Which is probably why I admire him so much, because I can't find what I want to do in life. I just want to touch a little bit of all of it.
I relate to that very hard as well.
So that's been part of his life too. And as an example of that, he currently serves as a reserve deputy for the Sheriff's Department of Hinds County, Mississippi. He does charity work for them, and he also finds time for his passions of being outdoors and studying geology and paleontology. This is Dan
so
Aykroyd,
cool.
right?
Wow, what an amazing life,
So
and there is joy to be found.
there's joy in the death,
'Cause he's like a comedian. There's playful energy there,
and he's always had that element of the paranormal, death, and the other side following him around.
right?
Do you know where the connection is to paranormal research, though?
No, I mean, aside from what you said about how he brought his knowledge to Ghostbusters, but
Yeah, so his knowledge comes from his father, who is that secretary of prime minister. It's interesting to me when people can be so connected with, I'm gonna say, normal activities like politics,
yeah,
but also be hyper invested in the ethereal aspects of what we're both talking about.
yes.
So his father's name is Peter Ackroyd Sr., and he published a book in 2009, which I own and I love it. It's called The History of Ghosts.
Wow.
It's because he's spent a lot of his life researching the paranormal, and that's how Dan Aykroyd actually got excited into this. The highlights of his paranormal experience, I would say, I'll walk through this pretty fast, but he credits sneaking into and watching seances in his parents' parlor as a child for the way that he got interested in the paranormal and began his own
This
research.
is Peter or Dan?
This is Peter.
Okay.
So again, it's Dan Aykroyd's father would have been at the end cusp of that spiritualism.
Yeah, like in the
movement.
20s or 1910s even. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, as I mentioned before, this connects with Dan Aykroyd. He's also being raised in an environment like, with your supportive mother. He's osmosing all of this paranormal research with him.
Yeah, that's just so interesting because I feel like people that are born in that environment, there's so much less shame about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an open experience. It's something else to learn.
Yeah, so he was able to just go out in life and just kind of joyfully show that without feeling like any sort of weird energy around it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And bringing it all back to the paranormal research portion of it is he used a lot of his father's notes and stories to create the movie Ghostbusters. And that's how we bring it all full circle.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love those movies. That's amazing.
There you go. And that is the my section. This is the chit chat of the week.
Thank you so much, Ty. That's so great.
So we talked a lot about the huge things that are happening this week, but what are the two biggest takeaways that you want to have people carry with them as they move forward through a really active celestial week?
I think to trust your intuition, trust that you've got this. Don't, if you start to feel confused or overwhelmed, just, have faith that you know where you're going. Like you've got this. I think that having a good intention is really going to help carry us through this week and through the next few months. So just making sure your intentions are clear, because sometimes if we're moving forward without knowing where we're going, without having that intention, even if we don't know exactly where the path is, that intention can help lead us forward and keep us on track.
I think that's wonderful advice.
Well, thank you. So yeah, join us next week for another astrological forecast and another fun topic brought to us by Ty. And in the meantime,
I will bring that to you.
Yes, I know you always do. And in the meantime, if you want to dive even deeper into this wild week, you can find us over on Patreon, and you can listen to my Planetary Potion podcast over there, where I go into all of the transits. And there's also monthly horoscope guides. You can ask Ty and I questions, and we'll answer you and all of that good stuff.
And you only charge people $5 a month. And I would say that the amount of information that you have to provide for tomorrow alone would be worth that $5.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's less than like a fancy cup of coffee would be.
That's right. And you're getting your celestial weather forecast.
Yeah, exactly. You can flow with the day. You can every day of the month.
I love it. Cool. Well, let's pitch to credits, and I'll see you back here next week.
All right. Sounds great. Unclouded Eye stars Ashley Brooks and Ty Gowan. It is produced and directed by Nick Nordfors. Music by Ashley Jane Cecilia and Jay Caron. Our community manager is Erin Cross. Art by Dawn Aquarius. And Unclouded Eye is presented by Haunt Me. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Unclouded Eye, or Patreon at Unclouded_Eye. Unclouded Eye is made possible thanks to sponsors like Megan Simon and Kat Z.